Okay. Let him get that thing for me, Linda. As you come into this session, if you would just place yourself on mute.
I have it on my phone, but I ain't got it on my laptop. Hold on. Hey, I'm sorry to bother you, but look, how do I get my picture to come in? Is that share start video? I'm going to get my new charger.
To those of you who are joining us, welcome. If you are a participant, it would be helpful for you to put the breakout session that you would like to attend in the comment section so we can continue the process of assigning the breakout sessions. Thank you. It is 8:04, and we are up to about 45 participants now. And we'll give it a few more seconds because folks are still coming in.
Bless you. You said do what now? Oh, I see me. I see Bobby. Okay. Oh, wait a minute. Let me go back. Hold on. I did. Hold on. Let me do it now. Okay. Okay. I got it. No. I see me. I don't see you. I see Miss Bobby on here. I need my glasses. Let me just hold on. I need to go in my room and get my glasses. Hold on.
Good morning.
As a support to our kids and our youth, you know, for.
So you do that.
I was running.
Hi, I have a question.
Does someone have a question? Good morning.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Yes, good morning. I'm trying to let some late bloomers who are sending me emails to try to get in, but what was your question?
This is Senta, and I'm presenting about the RMRP, the Rent and Mortgage Relief Program. I think that means that I should go into section 2, right? Breakout session 2.
No, I think you were in section 3
Okay.
mostly for technical assistance, from what I understood about what you were going to present. That's for resources and technical assistance.
Okay.
You were going in the place where Ramona was.
Okay.
Are we supposed to, good morning, how you doing?
Hello.
Are we supposed to do FaceTime or just regular like this?
Who's speaking now?
Just LaWanda Beckett.
Okay, you can, but you, as a participant, you can come in video, or you can, just come in on your cell phone.
Okay.
As long as you can hear, that's the most important thing.
Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. This is Pam Kessner. I'm with the Department of Housing and Community Development. And I just wanted to mention Senta Gorey just was talking about which session. And I noticed that session 4 also talks about what to do when facing eviction. And the program that she's going to be talking about, the rental and mortgage relief program, directly assists households to prevent them from being evicted and from foreclosure. So just wanted to mention that anyone interested in programs that would prevent eviction, that program would be a good one to listen in on. Didn't want to.
And Pam, this is Marty Wegbright.
Yeah.
I'm one of the presenters for Breakout Session 4. So
cool.
I will be covering that, although briefly, along with
Okay.
all of the other anti-eviction matters. So if people want a brief overview, they can come to my session, or they can go to the other session for the more in-depth, or we can switch them around. It's up to the session leaders as to what to do.
Yeah, that sounds.
What I was going to suggest is kind of to follow through up on what Marty just said, that we would keep her in the session that she's in, but at the end, if there are overlapping questions or things that people think are important, in the final hour will be the time that we have to go back to the main session where we can talk about questions, overlapping resources, or things that may apply to the entire group. So at that point, it might be helpful to kind of as an add-on to whatever Marty and Mally present.
That sounds like a great plan. Thank you.
I think we're at 50, and I just wanted to give us about 10 minutes to let people come in and get settled down. But I think at this point, we're going to just get started with the session and let people join as they arrive, because I think we have a really good. What I would like folks to do, I'll just go ahead and get started with the introductions, and then we'll do that. The screen that you should see now lists the breakout sessions. I want to start by saying good morning to everyone.
Good morning.
Welcome and thank you for joining us. Let me see. I'm sharing a screen, so I'll take that down for a second so that I can see you all.
Good morning.
Good morning. Switch back over to the screen with me on it.
I need it, honey.
Let's see. I think it's stop share. So good morning. I hope you can all see me now. It's a pleasure to be here. This has been a long 2 or 3 months that we've been planning this event.
Okay, here.
Who have worked so diligently to get this event, pull this event.
Ava, your sound is not coming through clearly.
Am I muted? I'm not muted.
It's not muted, Ava, but it is distorted, the sound.
Yeah, it's very distant sounding.
It's because I am, we have an extra child here in the house today. We're doing virtual learning in the house. And all of my grandchildren are home, and everyone took up all the rooms because we have an additional child in the house that I didn't know was going to be here this morning. So I am literally outside in the backyard, in the back of the house. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Is that better?
Oh, Ramona here.
Good. So I'll start again. Obviously, we are doing a virtual conference, as you can imagine, because of all of the extraordinary things that are happening in our world today. And my life is a case study in all that's happening in the world. We have 3 children at home that are virtual learning. and we are navigating between the parents and the grandma all trying to get together to make sure that we continue the children's education. So we just do the best we can and work it out. And I know some of you all have similar stories in your own lives about how you're just trying to manage and keep everything afloat during this really difficult time in our country. But I want to welcome you all to being for kind of still joining us and being here with us, because although this is a very extraordinary time in our country's history, it is still a very extraordinary time in many folks' lives, a difficult time in many folks' lives around their housing situations. And so we thought it was very important to still continue with this conference in order to make people aware of the resources that were available, the opportunities, the programs, where they might go about making applications, and what processes are important to getting decent quality, affordable housing and maintaining that housing. And so we invited the lenders, the realtors, the support services from around the state, as well as the fair housing professionals, to talk to us about everything that is going on, the full gamut of experiences that people are facing in their housing situations around the country, around the state. And so as a matter of housekeeping, can everyone still hear me?
Yes.
As a matter of housekeeping, the way the session will run today is we're going to have our main session, and we'll have speakers to kind of provide us with an overview of the homeownership process, the rental process, and kind of an overview of fair housing, knowing your rights. And then we'll go into 4 breakout sessions, and the breakout sessions will be much more detailed sessions about the very same things. There'll be one for homeownership. That will be the first one, will be moderated by Chris Thompson. There'll be a second one about renters, and you'll hear from Colin King and Brenda Holden in that session, and it'll be moderated by Karen Downing. And there you'll hear from a property manager that manages many of these affordable housing, subsidized housing, multifamily properties around the region. East Coast Property Management manages probably 90% of the subsidized multifamily properties around the shore. And then Brenda Holden is a private property manager that manages a lot of properties on the Eastern Shore, and she's going to talk about the landlord-tenant relationship and other related issues. The third session is about housing resources for both homeowners and renters, and technical assistance that is available to folks who are interested in getting their house. So we're going to learn about, there'll be some renter education offered there, instruction, and things that you would need to know about down payment assistance, other rental assistance, and things of that sort. So we'll hear from the Planning District Commission and Hugh Hennessy, Renata Young, and Russ Williams from the AMPDC about the renter assistance that is available on the shore, and LaDonna Cruz from Virginia Housing about the resources that are offered through them. And the fourth session is going to be about knowing your rights. One of the reasons why we decided to do that session was because Ramona Chapman from DHCD shared that they have been gaining a lot of data, a lot of information about the eviction rate increasing over the last time during this extraordinary time in our country, and with the pandemic, and that curve is likely to take a spike in the months to come, given unemployment rates and the things that people are facing with the uncertainty and challenges that people are facing in their economic situations. And so we thought it was also important to bring the fair housing people to the conversation so that they could share. And we have Mahalia Dryden Mason and Marty Webgret, and they are fair housing professionals who will share some of the information with you. The final thing that I'd ask is if you can hear me and you have the ability to type in the comment section, please let me know which breakout session of the 4 that I just mentioned. And as we go forward, I'm going to share the screen that was up there earlier that had the 1, 2, 3, 4 sessions in it. And you can choose the station that you would like to attend, and I will assign you to that as their presentations are being shared. And at 10 o'clock, you will automatically be transferred to the breakout session that you chose. So without further ado, I'm going to turn the session over to our first speaker. And that is that Amy? Hold on, I believe I have my list. That's Amy Schwartz from Virginia Housing. And I'm going to turn the over to her to introduce herself and share her presentation.
Ava?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to point out real quick before they got started. Mahalia has asked that we remind folks to mute their phones or their computers. We're
Yes.
hearing feedback in the background. We just don't want that to distract from everyone being able to hear the information.
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you, Ava, and good morning, and welcome to the conference. I'm Amy Schwartz, the Homeownership Strategic Lending Manager at Virginia Housing. I want to talk to you this morning about homeownership. A home represents safety and stability. It holds dreams and hopes for the future and provides a sanctuary that's all your own. Knowledge and good planning are the keys to making your first-time home buying experience successful. The more you know, the more successful you will be. I cannot emphasize enough the value of education prior to homeownership. At Virginia Housing, we offer free home buyer education resources to anyone wanting to learn the ins and outs of home buying. Being prepared is important. Are you ready to become a homeowner? A few topics you will want to consider are money management. Have you thought about a monthly spending plan before you jump into homeownership? How is your credit? Good, bad, or I don't know? Virginia Fair Housing laws. You will hear a lot about that today and how they affect you and how they can help you. The loan process. Exploring lenders and types of loans offered that are best for your situation. Who are the partners? Working with a real estate agent to find the right home and finding out everything you need to know about a home inspection. What happens after you buy your home? Owning a home and maintaining a home is extremely important. I truly believe it is essential before you start working with a realtor or a lender, you will want to think about the topics that will be discussed today during this conference and follow up by taking the free Virginia Housing Homebuyer Education online course. Remember, preparation is key to success. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy the conference today. I believe we're moving on, Ava, to the next speaker.
Yes, and the next speaker is, I was on mute, so I was talking and you couldn't hear me. Thank you. So the next speaker is LaDonna Cruz. And Ramona, are you here? Ramona Chapman, I thought I saw you in one of these sessions. How about this? Stacy, you can hear me.
Good morning, Ava. Good
Okay.
morning, everyone.
Good morning. How are you? Stacy, I'm gonna ask Stacy while I'm here assigning, I'm signing the breakout sessions for people who are now beginning to share what breakout sessions they are in. If you and Stacy would kind of co-facilitate with me to kind of keep this session going so I can make the assignments. You have the agendas in front of you. I'd appreciate that. just kind of jump in and help. So Stacy, you can, since you're here, you and Ramona can kind of keep us going, because I'm over here now kind of doing the assignment so the breakout sessions can start on time. Okay. Thank you.
Stacy, before I get started, are you able to give me the authorization to share my screen real quick?
I'm not able to. That would be Ava who would.
Remember when we talked the other day, the settings are already set for participants to be able to share screen. So there shouldn't be anything.
Well, I just tried
and it didn't work.
It's disabled. The host disabled.
Okay, well, let me try it again, because I set that up the day that we met. Let me see.
That's okay.
Oh, it may be because I was sharing the screen earlier.
No,
let me try and see.
It's me.
Now I got to figure that out, because it said any person could participate.
It's okay. I can go ahead and get started.
Yeah, but I want to make sure it's working, because I'm not sure why it's not working. We set it up so any participant could share, so I'm not sure. Well, if you get started, I'll work on it.
That's perfectly fine. Okay, so first of all, I'd like to say good morning to everyone as well. I want to thank everyone for joining this virtual conference to learn more about housing. Amy has provided a great summary of home ownership, and I'd like to focus on renting. But before I do, I also want to say it's such a pleasure to see a lot of the folks that I've worked with for many, many years in the industry, Bobby, Molly, Marty, I see you all, and Dawn, and it's so great to know that we can all still come together and provide consumers information that will be helpful for them. So for those of you that are joining the call, like I said, I would like to focus on renting right now. And whether it's a house, apartment, a duplex, or a townhome, single room, such as a boarding or rooming house, and even a manufactured or mobile home, there are 10 key steps to renting. And I want to say congratulations, because you've actually taken the first step, which is to really, become involved and learn more about either renting or home ownership. And here at Virginia Housing, we offer both consumer resources and information, and I always like to plug free to consumers. And so what I want to focus on today, and as well during the breakout session, is our How to Be a Successful Renter resource that we have. So congratulations, because you've actually taken the first step. But I'd like to definitely encourage you guys to access our resources as well. Again, they're free. We have an ebook, and we also have an online course. And the second step to renting is to decide whether or not you're financially ready. So before you even begin your rental search, we want you to know what you can afford. And sometimes that means just creating a spending and savings plan. And Amy mentioned that just a few minutes as well. And this helps you to identify your income, your expenses, your debts. And this is a big part of ensuring that you're going to be a successful renter. How much can you really afford to spend on rent? And that's what a spending and savings plans helps you to do. The third step is to identify your needs and your wants. So here's where I ask you to make a list of your must-haves. And this includes your price range, the number of bedrooms, and the desired location. A list of what would be nice, but also a list of what's not absolutely necessary, but it would be really nice to have. And so I want you to consider those things as well. So knowing your needs and your wants will help you narrow your search. And I feel like that will help you become a more successful renter as well. The fourth step is to really understand there are various types of rentals, as well as available resources. And the one thing I really like about this conference when I was looking at the agenda is it's going to give you the a lot of information, some referrals and some resources to help you understand a lot of information about rental, including those different types of rentals. So one of the most important decisions you're going to make is, where am I going to call home? What type of rental is right for me? And the choices may be limited in your area, but it could also, like I said, include, just a traditional apartment rental, but it may be a studio. It could be, the single room occupancy. So think about that as well. That's so important as one of the steps to renting. The fifth step would be know the fair housing laws. And you're going to hear a lot about that as well today. Virginia enforces fair housing laws that protect against bias, and those laws prohibit rental transactions that discriminate. So you want to know that going into the process of renting a home. There are certain protected classes that cannot be treated differently or discriminated against, and these are unfair. They're unfair laws. And you have some rights in regards to the law, how you're treated when you're looking for properties and when you are actually in a rental lease agreement. And sixth step for me is, unfortunately, beware of scams. Okay. Is this person you're dealing with reputable? Okay. Everyone wants a good deal, but is it really a good deal? Or is it a scam? If someone's asking you to enter into a rental agreement for a 3,000 square foot home and your rent is only going to be $200 a month, I would say that's a red flag. But they need you to put at least 3 months of rent down in advance in cash. Those are the type of things that should be red flags for you. So be aware of anyone who asks for money before you actually view the property, and those who ask for cash only. So ask yourself, is it truly the landlord, or is it a scam artist? Okay, is this property actually for rent? We've seen all kinds of scams as well. And then the seventh step for me is read before you sign. And we say this a lot in our industry, is to definitely read, ask questions. It's important for you to understand all the documents before you're signing them. And that's including that initial application. Really understand what that application is saying, any authorization forms, and then the lease agreement. So might be some disclosures that they may provide to you as well. That's equally important for you to understand, what is this disclosure really saying to me? So ask questions, get clarification, seek assistance from a professional if you need it, because sometimes a lot of what is written and provided to you may seem like a legal brief. And there's things that I've read sometimes and I'm like, what is this saying? So it's okay to reach out to those professionals and get some clarification from them as well. And then that eighth step to me is to inspect the property. So once you've found that property, it's recommended that you begin inspecting that property right away. So you want to note any pre-existing conditions or damages. You want to do that in writing, once you move in. So take pictures, submit a report to the landlord. You want to have that future reference, and you want to keep a copy of that record as well. This is really important because it's going to become an invaluable document when you move out. So the likelihood of the landlord charging you for pre-existing properties is then minimized because you noted that those things were like that when you first moved in. And the likelihood of receiving your full security deposit is then maximized because you actually had this document in place. And it's not always just the little things, the bigger items, but just some of those little things that you can definitely live with, but you just want to note that it was like that when you moved in. And then my ninth step to renting is to think about acquiring renter's insurance, okay? That landlord's insurance policy does not cover your personal property. So that's one of those big kind of misunderstandings within the industry. So you want to think about protecting yourself against, cost of repairs and replacements of your personal property, and any liability or expenses that you may have due to maybe injuries or some type of, flood or anything that might happen, any type of damage that may happen to the property, and especially to your personal property. So the policies vary, but the cost is often very affordable, and it's going to protect your furniture, it's going to protect your clothing, your electronics, your household items from being a total loss. And so there's some resources there that the State Corporation Commission has to give you some useful guides and publications on obtaining renter's insurance as well. And then my last step is to adhere to all of the lease provisions. So once you're in that property, both the landlord and yourself, you have rights, but you also have some responsibilities in terms of the lease agreement. So do this and your rental experience should be a pleasant one. But remember, the landlord is accountable as well, but the landlord, they know the law. So it's you that really needs to understand the law. It's you that need to read that lease provision to really understand that I am doing everything that I need to do. Paying that rent on time, keeping the property in good condition, and adhering to the lease agreement is really just the 3 key factors to being successful as a renter. And that's it for my summary, and I'm going to turn it back over now.
Thank you, LaDonna. That was awesome. A lot of great information there. Very excited to hear the in-depth that we'll have. Up next, we have Ms. Mahalia Dryden-Mason. Would you please introduce?
Good morning. Let me see if I can bring my little thingy up here. Oh, yeah, it did say it, LaDonna. We can't bring it up. So good morning, everybody. My name is Mahalia Dryden-Mason, but I always make it a big thing about having one name like Cher and Madonna. So I am just Molly. And first thing I want to say is just because it's done all the time doesn't mean it's always right. So
I want to, sorry, I think I fixed it. If you want to share it, I think I fixed it. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I think
girl, you are on point.
Is it working?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Let me see if I can bring that up. Come on, thing. There you go. Can you see?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So I was telling you all that I'm Mahalia Dryden-Mason, and I like to be just one name. So I work for DPOR, and if you don't know who DPOR is, you need to know, especially if you're looking to buy a house, because we regulate everything that is not legal, financial, or medical. One of the important people that we regulate are contractors. And if you buy a house, you're gonna need a contractor. Always make certain that contractor is licensed. If they're not licensed, you're not doing business with them. Because if something happens, you'll have to go through the court system. If not, if you go with someone that is licensed, then they have to be accountable to the board of contractors. We also regulate the real estate industry, and we are a very unusual fair housing office because we're usually in a equal rights building or a human rights building, not necessarily a regulatory building. So that makes us pretty unique. The Virginia Fair Housing Law has done some changes this year, and we're really excited about it. I'm still learning about those changes because, you know, it's pretty much new. But the first thing that I want to talk about is what is the goal of the Virginia Fair Housing Law? And that is to prevent discrimination in housing. Now, a lot of times we get calls at the office and they're talking about maintenance. You know, my landlord wouldn't fix this or my landlord wouldn't fix that. We know that the name fair housing is deceptive because it makes it seem like whatever is not fair, we're gonna fix. That's not really so. We only fight discrimination in housing, and it has to be based on the law. So what we try to do is that anyone that is looking to get housing, whether you want to buy or you want to rent, you're not going to be discriminated against if you are able to qualify. That's an important part. You have to be able to qualify for the housing, okay? So like LaDonna says, you have to choose what you can really afford too. I have listed, and I'm gonna share this with Ms. Ava so that she can share it with all of you, this presentation. I've listed some of the no-nos in fair housing, like refusing to rent or sell housing, to falsely deny that the housing is available for inspection or sale or rental. You try to put different prices depending on who it is. Somebody, let's say a Native American person show up and they want to shop, and the house may be valued at $200,000, but they're going to make it higher so that it's unavailable to them. Some of the other things, evict a tenant or mistreat a guest. A lot of people don't realize that in denying you access to your guests, they're also denying you your right to use and enjoyment of housing. So in some cases, we may have someone that has an assistance animal or a service animal, and they're visiting a friend. That property may be a no pets property, but they cannot deny that person from taking that dog onto that property when it is necessary for their, them to be able to enjoy housing, and the animal is a big help for that. There are several others, but I'm not going to go through each and every one of them. I even have it covered in mortgage lending. Sometimes we have redlining, and redlining is a thing that some lenders draw a line around a neighborhood or a certain zip code. They believe that that is a risk. The only thing about being a risk that they have shown is the people that are living there. So they're usually basing it on the racial makeup or the ethnic makeup of that community. So you have, Black and brown people oftentimes denied housing because of that. The fair housing law says that everyone that is able to qualify for housing should have equal use and enjoyment of their home, the property, and all of the amenities that are there on that property. So when it comes to harassment, a big thing, because it was usually addressed as sexual harassment for many years. But what we see is that if you are harassed in any ways on your property where you live, you're not going to be able to enjoy it. So we now have it where harassment cannot be allowed on any property. And if you make a complaint to one of your landlords or your property management and they do nothing about it, then it's time to file a complaint against them, because they're going to be just as accountable as the people who are doing the harassing. Our law here in Virginia was enacted on April 7th, 1972. As you all can see, this is a very young law. For a country that has had a diversity of people for over 400 years, you would think that this law would be at least several centuries old, but it is only 52 years old, and that's the federal law. Our state law is only 48 years old. And we were the very first Southern state to ever have a fair housing law. So that's one thing that makes me very, very proud about Virginia, that they took that step. Here in Virginia, we have now grown to a strong 12 protected classes as of July 1st of this year. So we have race, color, religion, national origin, sex, elderliness, familial status, disability, and the 4 new protected classes added on are source of funds, sexual orientation, gender identity, veteran status. For people living in Northern Virginia in the Fairfax County area and those living in Roanoke, they have additional fair housing protected classes also, because they have their own fair housing law. So both of those areas added marital status as a protected class. For those of you who don't know, Southern states have always had a law that says you shall not cohabitate if you're not married. Yes, it's an old law, it's over 100 years old, but it still exists because no one has ever taken the time to get rid of that law. So if a landlord in Virginia decides they don't want to rent to you because you're not married, there's absolutely nothing we can do unless you're living in Northern Virginia or in the Roanoke area. Roanoke also added one other protected class, and that was age, because we're covered under familial status from you born till age 18. We're covered from your 55 till you die, but between 19 and 54, there's no coverage. So a young person calling us and saying, hey, my landlord wouldn't rent to me because I'm 19 years old, and they say they don't rent to anyone that is 19, we'll say, oh, I'm sorry. But in Roanoke, you can actually file that complaint if it happens in Roanoke. So those are the differences there. Later on in the little class that we'll have, I'll go into more in-depth information. We'll talk about what is a protected class for those who don't know, what is covered under each protected class, what are some of the industries that we also regulate under fair housing, and what are the steps that an individual or a family can take if you feel that you have been discriminated against. I always say, if you walk in and you have everything right, because if you've been to LaDonna's class, you would know what you need. So if you walk into that landlord and he's asking you stuff that you know he shouldn't ask you, you're scratching your head, it is time to pick up the phone and call somebody and ask them if that was right. We have got to keep landlords on their P's and Q's. And the only way you're going to do that is through knowledge. Knowledge is definitely power. So when I started this 17 years ago, I thought I knew fair housing. I want to tell you all, my head has blown up, because this is such a powerful law. And the only reason you don't know about this law is because they don't want you to know. But as long as Molly is in Virginia, you will know. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think Molly was our final presenter for this hour, and we have, as I look at the clock, we have about 12 minutes before we need to start going into the breakout rooms. We're going to go in the breakout, about 14 minutes. We're going to go into the breakout rooms promptly at 10. Everyone has been assigned to a breakout room. If you, as a matter of housekeeping, if you get to a breakout room, I've tried to go down the list and see what everybody said that they wanted. If you get to the breakout room and for some reason I hit the wrong number and put you in the wrong one, I did activate the option for you to come back to the main session and say, I was supposed to be in another breakout session and I'll move you over. Try not to do that. I hope I didn't do it too much, because I know it took a lot to get everybody assigned. And I tried to pay attention to what people thought that they wanted, but I could have hit a wrong button. So if in case you do, you can come back to the main session and we can move you to the breakout room session of your choice. Are there any questions for any of our three presenters so far? You can either share them in the comment section, or you can raise your hand. Karen Downing, I think you have a question. Go ahead.
Yes, good morning. Molly, thank you so very much. I had a quick question. You mentioned about redlining. Could you describe that again for us? Did she drop off?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, okay.
The button wasn't clicking quickly. Redlining. They would physically go to a map. Let's say it's the Eastern Shore, and they would draw a line around that. It's a red line. It tells all those who are in that business that if you do business with this this area in the Eastern Shore, it may be a risk. When you look at the risk is only based on who lives there. So what a lot of folks don't know is that even though you may not put what your race is or your color is, your zip code tells them who you are, unfortunately.
So is that one of the things that would be I'm trying to think of the right words, like a barrier when it comes to zoning for housing, is that if somebody has predetermined a specific area that they advertise to an outside source that to divert an interest of bringing development and growth into an area?
It could, because if you don't have housing attracts a lot of business too. It goes hand in hand, and it's wealth. So take for instance, I think Home had a big case against one of the big banks that they were not closing on mortgages for African Americans in the Richmond area, even though they were able to qualify. So, they use it for mortgage and they use it in insurance. Insurance companies would say it's a risk to sell them insurance, because if we sell them insurance, these.
Well, you just went on mute, Mahalia.
7th grade, 8th grade, 7th grade. Okay. No problem. All right.
Your voice went out. Are you muted?
Malia.
It's showing muted.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
It's like the host muted
me. She's going on Tuesdays and Fridays.
Somebody else is talking.
She's on the schedule B.
Uh-oh.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
No problem. Thank you. All right.
So, okay, real quick, just want to remind everybody who is calling from your phone, whether your home phone or your cell phone, try to remember to mute yourself, because we do not want to have very critical information be interrupted for someone who may need this. You guys are all here for a reason, and we came here to share this information with you, and we want to make sure everybody's hearing it. We thank you for that. And thank you, Mihaly. I'm sorry I don't know what that interruption was.
I was going to say, several years ago, in 1998, there was a big redlining case, and it was Richmond took the forefront on it. Housing Opportunities Made Equal sued nationwide because they were not selling policies to African Americans in a zip code in Richmond. They were selling policies, same area to whites, but they did not sell to blacks. And that was a huge case which garnered judgment of $100 million. It was Senator Tim Kaine and a lawyer by the name of Rhonda Harrington, and they did a fantastic job. When Richmond filed their lawsuit, there were several other states, huge cities in states that also filed lawsuits. So they were able to negotiate, a settlement from that big judgment so that all people would be paid. But this is not new. This is from the 1930s, and it still happens even today. Redlining.
Miss Molly.
Yes.
How are you today?
I'm doing well, Miss Ramona.
Yes, ma'am. I enjoyed your presentation. I just have a question about certain communities. Are adults-only communities, are they allowed where maybe it's elderly-only communities?
We don't have adult communities anymore. Those have been phased out. They are definitely discriminatory to families with children. So unless a community is an elderly community, which allows you to have either 55 and older, that allows you an 80-20 ratio. It means that 80% of the community has to have at least one person that is 55 and older in the unit. If they do the 80-20, the other 20% could possibly be, depending on what the property decides, families with children, people with disabilities, or they may say, somebody for, some weird thing, maybe people with some kind of different situation. But it's really up to them to decide what the 80-20 is. What happens is, even if they have the 80-20 ratio, they can't steer. And by that I mean, if there's an open unit and I want to live in that unit and I have a child with me, you can't tell me to go to the building where only children are, because that would be steering. So whatever unit I want, I still have to be able to get.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Oh, the other one is the 62 and older, and that is, you have to be 62 and older
Okay.
to live in that community. We've had people that will call and say, well, I want my community to be 50 and older. It's not legal.
Okay.
Not legal. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ava, you're on mute. You're talking, but you're on mute.
I'm muted again. Sorry about that. I'm good at about shutting myself up, just not unmuting myself. As you can imagine, we have about 5 minutes before the next session. As you can imagine, this is a pretty massive undertaking to do a virtual conference of this size. We have a pretty large group. Everyone's been assigned. So I'm going to take the next 5 minutes to start transitioning you to your breakout sessions and to give the moderators an opportunity to set up. Those of you who are participating, if you'll just give us a few seconds, if there are no other questions, just to be sure there are no other questions. Yes.
You've got a comment here from Jay Grant. He says deed restrictions also aided in creating redlining through the greater part of the 20th century.
Absolutely. I'm sorry about that, Jay. I didn't see the comments. I'm busy trying to set up for the breakout sessions. Did you want to share some information, Jay? I said Jay. Jay Grant, are you there? Did you want to share some information?
Are you able to hear me, Ava?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, no, I was just pointing out not only deed restrictions, and I think Sherry Miles also points out HOAs played a part. There were a number of things throughout the 20th century, I think, that aided in furthering redlining. Even, when you look at, Molly was talking about the lending industry, but there were just so many other things in terms of even the state laws, federal laws. It made it very, very tough. And I think what we see today are some vestiges of that. When you see the patterns in residential settlement were basically set forth many, many decades ago. And so hopefully through programs like what we have at DHCD and Virginia Housing, and just through better lending practices, hopefully we break through all of those vestiges to get to a more fair housing situation for all people. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. If there are no other comments, did you want to share something, Sherry? Was there something you want to add? Sherry Miles? No? Okay. Karen Hatch added, there's a great book, The Color of Law by Richard Rothstein, that breaks it all down throughout the entire United States. So that's a book that some of you who are interested in this topic may want to study. So we're now down to 2 minutes. So I really am going to cut it off at this point and move us into our breakout sessions. This is a very important issue. And so if there are the questions that you'd like to ask Mally and others, you can come back into the main session and ask to be moved to that session if there's something that you really want to talk about and learn. If not, we'll have some time to ask more questions in the final hour. So I'm going to open the breakout sessions now. Okay, so Tashika White, are you here? Tashika White and Mary Baines. There are three of you who are still left here with me. Okay, nope, nope. So I think I'm left here by myself now. Tashika White. I think I'm here with you now. I was watching everyone get started. We'll give, the system is still transitioning folks over, so we'll give it a minute or so to get that done.
Good morning, Ava.
Hey there, Karen, how are you?
I'm good. I know where you are now.
You know where I am now? What's that?
Well, I wondered, I tried to get up with you a couple days ago, and I thought maybe you were on your way home.
I was, and then just trying to manage this virtual learning with the girls and the husbands is a lot. So just suffice it to say, I'm pinch hitting and helping out wherever I can. And, you know, I'll be home on the weekend though, because one of them's going to take vacation next week. So she'll be home all week. So I'll be there, and I'll probably be back here the week after, but we'll get together. Yeah. Okay, so I want to welcome everyone to the, let's see if you can see me. I hope we're all here. I want to welcome everyone to the Technical Assistance and Resources session. This is a session that was intended to let folks in the community know what kind of resources are available to you if you're looking to rent a house, if you're looking to purchase your first home. So this is the place where we hope that you would come to learn about all of the resources that are available to you to help support you in your efforts. Because oftentimes when you're looking for a new home, you may need down payment assistance or home ownership counseling, home buyer counseling to get you through the lending process. If you're renting, sometimes you may need rental assistance to help you to be able to afford your house or your utilities. If you own your home, you may need support with rehabilitation of your home so that you can fix your house up and get it up to standard so it's livable for you. And so this is the session that was intended to address all of those issues. I'm going to start with, we're going to start with housing assistance, and the next people that you'll hear from will be from our local Accomack Northampton Planning District Commission. And there'll be Russ Williams from that office, Hugh Hennessy, and Renata Young. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Russ to introduce himself, his staff, and what resources that organization has to share.
Thank you, Ava. I'm going to share my screen now. Can everyone hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we are the Accomack Northampton Planning District Commission Housing Services team. We run a number of programs. On the call with me today is Hugh Hennessy, who is our certified housing counselor, and Renata Young, who is a community development coordinator. Some of the programs we're going to talk about, they actually administer out of our office. The first thing I wanted to talk about is something many people have heard of, and I just wanted to kind of go over very briefly, is the Section 8 program, which is officially known as the Housing Choice Voucher Program, or HCV. This is housing assistance for qualified low-income families and individuals. It pays a portion of the rent according to the income and composition of the family. The choice and housing choice voucher is the tenants. This is a big thing about the program. They actually find their housing and negotiate with the landlord initially. And then homes are qualified from that point via our processes of discovering whether they're affordable, whether the rent that is being charged is reasonable, and whether the condition of the home.
Discount. We also talk about discount points, and those are interest that the bank collects at the time of closing, and it really covers the costs of the process of giving you a loan. Usually at one point is a 1% of the loan amount that you are getting. Very important, and one of the speakers earlier today talked about this. Virginia Fair Housing Law protects individuals from discriminatory practices. And here is information on how you can get, here's the details how you can get information about the fair housing law in Virginia. Very, very important that you are familiar with that. Working with a real estate agent, that's after you have a lender, after you have talked to the lender, now it's time to start talking to a real estate agent that will help you determine the property, the location, the size, the type. There are many advantages of working with us. We take care of appointments. We assist in evaluating all the properties that you're looking at. We assist in setting you up.
Because you do not want to be charged for damages. Now, there are damages that are considered normal wear and tear, and there are damages that are not, and a tenant may be charged for that. So you need to know up front before you sign as to what things you may be charged for, and that landlord will probably be able to give you that information, and it should be in writing. Every time you are agreeing to rent from someone, it needs to be a document. This is considered a legal document. You have a copy, and the person and the landlord has a copy of it. So it's a legal document, and you need to hold on to it. You need to be aware of scams. Lots of times I will hear people say, oh, I'm renting to own. If you are selecting to rent to own, then that is another legal document that must be bought into within the legal system, where your name is tied to this document, to the deed, or some type of contract saying that this is what's agreed upon. Because a lot of people say, oh, I'm renting to own, but there's no document. It's just a word of mouth. So the legal copy of a rental agreement or contract is very important, and that you need to have that. The other thing is, if you're moving into an apartment, you need renter's insurance. Lots of times people don't think about it and think it's too high, but a renter's insurance protects you. As a landlord, all my properties are insured. My insurance protects me, protects that property. But the content that you bring into that house, your television, your bedding, your clothing, all of those things are yours, and your renter's insurance will protect you with that. Lots of times this insurance is less than $300. If you own a car, that renter's insurance can be attached to the, that insurance company can have a policy that will also give you renter's insurance. So it's very, very important. When you're moving into an apartment and you decide, or a house, and you decide that there is going to be another person with you, and Molly talked about it.
This is very broadly. Okay, great. So source of funds is very broadly defined. And as you can see, it's any source that provides funds to a renter or buyer, and it includes any program, whether administered by a governmental or a non-governmental agency. So by that wording, it would apply to all these rent relief programs that we'll talk about later, that are across the Commonwealth. $50 million is being spread out to offer rent relief to tenants. And I would argue, again, this law is only 1 month and 3 weeks old, that the source of funds protection also requires landlords to accept those rent relief funds. It's not optional, it's not voluntary, it's mandatory. We'll see what the prohibited practices are in a moment, but the source of funds definition clearly covers both governmental and non-governmental agencies. As I mentioned, there are the exemptions for essentially the mom and pop, the Mrs. Murphy exemption. But again, it only applies if you own no more than 4 rental dwelling units, or if you have a 10% interest or less in 4 or fewer rental dwelling units. And the other is essentially the voucher doesn't get approved within 15 days of the request to approve it. And again, I'll get into that shortly. But in fact, I'm getting into it now. So the way the voucher program works is this. Section 8 agencies, typically redevelopment and housing authorities, apply for voucher funds from HUD. Actually, they really apply to get them from VHDA, which gets them from HUD. And then the agencies advertise the program. They take applications. The low-income families apply, and those who are eligible either get a voucher or place on the waiting list, which sometimes is months long and sometimes years long. Once the applicant gets the voucher, the tenant finds a unit, and it has to meet a bunch of different rules. It has to meet federal housing quality standards. The landlord has to be approved, not a landlord who has been barred from the program. The rent has to be within the rent range of the voucher. The number of bedrooms has to be within the range of the voucher. And that's pretty much the criteria. If it meets all those criteria, the landlord and tenant have an executed lease, and everything is submitted to the agency for final approval.
And we, of course, welcome any questions either on this forum, or people can call us directly if they want some more details.
Thank you, Russ. And I'll just, hold on, I think you can just introduce your staff and, they can continue with the presentation.
Sure, sure. They had meant for me to kind of do the presentation, but they'll certainly take your questions. Hugh is on the call, Hugh Hennessy, and so is Renata Young.
Okay.
And if anyone in this group has any questions, we'd be more than happy to answer them for you.
Sure. Thank you. I popped out. I might have missed that part. I popped out to check on the moderators in the other sessions to make sure everything was okay over there, because we thought we would be able to communicate with one another through the chats, but there's not a way. So I have to kind of pop in and check on them.
Oh, no problem.
I think we'll go next to you, LaDonna. Folks met you in the main session, but if you'll reintroduce yourself and kind of share your presentation now, we look forward to hearing from you.
Okay. All right. Let's see if I can get this presentation up for you. Give me just a second. Okay. Are you guys viewing my presentation now or no?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so again, yes, I gave a little quick summary of what I feel are 10 important steps to renting, but I'm going to kind of shift the focus just a little bit toward education, because education is what's really near and dear to my heart. I am with Virginia Housing. We are the State Housing Finance Agency. And I serve in a role as the housing education manager. And that's why I want to tell you guys right now, and I love what I do because I love empowering consumers and giving them that information, those referrals, and those resources that they need to make those informed decisions. My background, I just want to say really quickly, has been in renting for many, many years. I served as a property manager for redevelopment of housing authorities, as well as I worked with the housing choice voucher programs. And then I kind of shifted after about 15 years to home ownership. So I've also been working in home ownership for about 15 years. And right now I feel like I'm dating myself, if you're doing the math. But yes, I've been in the industry for some time, including doing loss mitigation and reverse mortgages. And so I've seen a lot as far as mistakes and some common misunderstandings within both of those sides, whether it's renting or home ownership. And so for that reason, it has become really a passion for me personally, to educate consumers. So let's see if I can advance the slide. So what I want to talk about first, before I kind of get into what you should know as you're going through that initial renting phase, is that there are some resources out there. And as I mentioned before, and Molly, you guys met Molly, she's part of this whole fair housing as well. So there is equal housing opportunities for everyone. And so that's the first thing that you should know as you're going through. And Molly kind of went through this really quickly, and I know that she's in another breakout session, but even with that, for those of you that are with us in this breakout session, wanted to let you know that whether you're renting or buying, okay, there are some prohibited practices as far as discrimination. You cannot be treated differently. And I've kind of just listed them here: religion, race, color, national origin, sex, familiar status, elderliness, disability. But just recently, they added some additional ones, and this is covering the entire state. I know Molly talked a little bit about just some specific ones in Northern Virginia and Roanoke, but the newer ones that they just added was source of income. So you can't discriminate against someone because of the source of income. So what I'm saying is, because you're receiving some type of public assistance, you cannot be discriminated against in your housing. Do you still need to qualify based on that income, but you cannot just simply be discriminated any longer by saying, I don't accept anyone that's on Section 8. Okay. Gender identity is one of the newer ones, sexual orientation, as well as veteran status. So we've been, Virginia, there's certain parts of Virginia that are very heavy military, active duty retirees, and they were being targeted and they were being discriminated against simply because they were in the military. So kudos to Virginia for adding these additional ones. As Molly says, we now have 12 protective classes, which is really great. Another great resource for you guys, and I know that this PowerPoint presentation, Ava, you're going to be sharing this with all of those that are on the call. So I'm not going to get into detail about this part of them, but another great resource is the Landlord-Tenant Act. Okay, this provides information to both the landlords and the tenants concerning their residential rental properties. And so again, this information is critical in the rights and responsibilities of both, but sometimes it's really hard to read. And for that reason, it's why we, Virginia Housing, created How to Be a Successful Renter for you, the consumers. It's a more easy read for you and for you to be able to understand a little bit easier your rights and your responsibilities. So that is the Virginia Residential Landlord-Tenant Act. And again, it's a lot of pages, a lot of reading, but it does cover, you know, rental units, governing the rental units. And again, that includes your rights and your obligations, as they say in the actual act, but what they're saying is your responsibilities. It covers apartment units, it covers the buildings, it covers single family housing, motels. There's have been some new laws in recent years in regarding of whether or not you're residing in a motel or not, and boarding houses. So this is so important to understand, and that ebook and online course we have really does give you some key information about your rights and your responsibilities in regards to whatever type of rental that you're doing. And then part of that VRLTA applies to manufactured homes, public housing, and Section 8. So it's always a good idea to, again, to know these resources. The VRLTA, it covers a lot of things, including things that are really important to you. Confidentiality. Can that landlord just share my information? Notices that you should be receiving. Disclosures. Do they have the right to just enter my unit whenever, you know, or when can they enter my unit? There are some circumstances where the landlord can enter your unit without your permission, but of course you could imagine that they are extreme circumstances. It covers the decent, safe, and sanitary rental, which is what everybody really wants. Also covers disabled tenants and or a member of your household that may be disabled. Talks about how you can utilize the property. Locks and peepholes, those are some small things, but it covers whether or not, if the type of unit that you're in, should the landlord be providing you locks and peepholes. It also talks about rent. Of course, you can imagine there's a lot about the rent, but even about advanced rent or prepaid rents or increases in rent. So there's a lot of information there as well. Smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors. Now, a lot of that is governed by local ordinances, but there are some basic guidelines in this VRLTA regarding smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors. Extermination, very important. You know, no one wants to live in a unit that has pests or rodents, so there's information regarding that as well. Painting, alteration, what can I do or not do to the unit, and keys. So there's a lot of information, and you'll see I have a little, you know, call out here that's saying if there's any wording in the rental agreement that's asking you, the tenant, to waive or forego any of these rights that are in the VRLTA, that is not prohibited. So they can't even put that in an agreement saying, hey, I know that the VRLTA gives you the right to do this, but I need you to sign this waiver saying that you waive your right to that. So that's prohibited by law as well. So again, as I stated, consumer education to me is a big resource for you as well. And again, at Virginia Housing, we provide those free resources. We call it How to Be a Successful Renter. And it's an ebook and it's an online course. And it's in both English and Spanish. So I wanted to mention that as well. So these are just the chapters that are covered in both of those resources. So it covers and helps you to start thinking, are you actually financially ready to rent? You know, those are some key things that you need to think about. The ins and outs of credit, because credit is everywhere. We can't get away from it no matter what we try to do, whether it's, you know, acquiring insurance, buying a car, and even renting. And then, you know, how do you go about finding that right place? What should you be thinking about? And I think I mentioned this in the summary, those needs versus your wants, things of that nature. And then that application process can seem so daunting for some individuals. So there's a whole chapter on just that application process and understanding what they're asking you for and why they're asking you for it. The lease agreement, legal binding a document. So it's so important for you to really understand that lease agreement. There's a chapter on getting back that security deposit. Nobody wants to just throw money away. So what are the things that people are doing that prohibits them from getting their security deposit back? You know, so we want to know, we want to talk about that, and there's a whole chapter on that. Life as a renter, again, your rights and responsibilities, housekeeping, maintenance, and repairs. That's a shared responsibility. So we have a whole chapter in there on who should be doing maintenance, what type of maintenance you should or should not be doing, and that you should be reporting to your landlords, and who should be taking care of those types of repairs. And so we have a whole chapter about that too, because that safe, decent, sanitary housing all stems from housekeeping, maintenance, and repairs. And then the right way to terminate the lease. So these are 9 chapters, but guess what, guys? You don't have to take all this in at the same time. Our online course is broken up into these chapters. You can take whichever chapter you like, whichever course you would like. You can, you know, come back in whenever you need to. So it's available to you 24/7. But all in all, the How to Be a Successful Renter resources, it helps you to, again, to decide whether or not you're financially ready to rent, those needs, wants, types of rentals, the fair housing laws, scams. You guys heard me mention that earlier. That just, you know, it's one of my pet peeves. You know, knowing things before you sign, inspecting the unit, acquiring rental insurance, and adhering to the lease agreement. So you guys heard me talk about this in the beginning. So what I want to do now is really quickly, I want to kind of shift focus and just kind of talk about, if you're thinking about renting, these are some of the key things that I feel that you should know about. Qualifying. What is the landlord looking for? Okay. How do you get approved? Okay. First of all, you know, they're going to definitely view your financial history. And often that's going to be a key indicator of whether or not, you know, that landlord feels that you're going to pay them back timely as well if they rent that property to you.
Options. Okay. Virginia Housing has options where on the go, where you can find out about your payment, make a payment, and contact VHDA. Thank you. Again, I apologize for the technical difficulties early on. If you have any questions, I'll be here throughout the conference to answer. Thank you.
Amy, thank you, and no apologies needed. We are all still struggling with how to get a grasp on technology now, so no apologies needed. And so thank you again, and with that, we will turn it over to Ms. Barbara.
Good afternoon, Chris. Thank you. Let's see. I can share my screen. Can you see it?
It's up now, yes.
Yay. Okay. I'm Jeannie Barbaro with USDA Rural Development. I'm the single family housing program director. And I'm just going to give you a little overview of what we have to offer homeowners. And the screen is not moving, so. Okay. First of all, I just wanted to let you know that USDA Rural Development has been open during the pandemic. Our physical offices have not been open, but everyone has been full speed ahead teleworking, and we've been very creative. We accept applications by email, we accept them by mail. We have drop boxes at our offices because right now they're not open to the public. And I've done a few on the phone. I have filled them out and sent them to my applicants, and they've signed them and sent them back. So definitely, we are working as hard as we can for everyone and trying to make this as easy as possible. We've overcome some complications. We've been creative, and basically we've processed and obligated more loans this year than in several years. So apparently we're doing something right with our teleworking, and we're all learning just like everybody else is. So just wanted to talk to you a little bit about what we have to offer. And, you know, if it's your dream to be a homeowner, then rural development may be able to help you see this dream come true. If you want to own your home, but possibly cannot get a mortgage from a private lender, you may be eligible for a loan with USDA Rural Development. Our direct program focuses the low and the very low income families. So we can help many, many people achieve the dream of homeownership. In our programs, you can purchase an existing home. You can build a home.
That if it's refundable, that you're going to make the steps to make sure that you get those funds back at move out. So the deposit itself, okay, security deposit is the one we all pretty much know. You know, most landlords are going to ask you for a security deposit, but you see that I have it here in red, not the same as the last month's rent. And that's where a lot of people will make mistakes at not getting back their security deposit, or the security deposit actually being forfeited, and you still end up having some charges as well. So you want to always know that it's not the same as last month's rent. Okay, but the security deposit in itself is just an upfront fee. It protects the landlord, but it is refundable. Okay, landlord can't just keep it, but if you do the steps that you need to do when terminating the lease agreement, you'll get that security deposit back. It can cover, excuse me, it can be used to cover early terminations, you know, so the landlord can use it for that. If you have any unpaid rent, late charges, any damages, any excessive cleaning. And a lot of times individuals, they make the mistake, I've seen this in my tenure, is saying, I took all my stuff out, but you didn't clean the unit. And then the landlord can actually charge you for not cleaning that unit. And then any other type of unpaid charges that you may have. So keep in mind that even with the deposit, there's a maximum amount that the landlord can charge you by law. And that's where that VRLTA comes in again. But again, we summarized this for you in our How to Be a Successful Renter ebook. The law right now in Virginia says no more than 2 months rent for your security deposit. It does vary with rent subsidy properties. Public housing, it's usually 30% of your income. And for your low income housing tax credit programs, there's also a cap there. So you want to know what those caps are so to make sure that you're not being overcharged. There are some other, and I kind of just wanted to mention these real quickly, there are some other costs other than the security deposits that will vary from landlord to landlord, or even the type of property or program that you may be in. They may ask you for an application fee, pet deposit if they allow pets. Pet rent is something different than pet deposit. They may ask you to pay a fee for damage, damage insurance, which is different from renter's insurance. And I mentioned renter's insurance earlier. So in that ebook, we outline what the differences are between damage insurance and renter's insurance in case your landlord is asking you for that as well. So now you put the deposit down, you've received it, you said, got notification, yes, they're going to rent this unit to you. Inspection. Okay, you don't want to be responsible, and you heard me say this in the summary, for any pre-existing damages, okay, or any unsanitary conditions or health risks. So we highly recommend that you inspect the property thoroughly at move-in, and that you complete that written report. So here you'll see where I'm saying at move-in, we call it a pre-existing damage report. Okay, you want to document everything.
It sounds like it reminds me of conversations that we had early on with our meetings. Ramona, you remember when we started back in March, or at least when I joined you guys, the stigma, the level of stigma. I mean, you even touched on that when you mentioned the wording handicap should be listed as disability, or persons with disabilities. You know, a person is not disabled, they are a person with a disability. There's a very fine line between how those words are said and what they carry with them. And that is just another layer of stigma that's misassociated to providing needs for someone and being open to those things. And I don't know if for some people here on the shore, it's the old mindset mentality. I keep thinking about the red line.
It's called implicit biases.
Okay.
Implicit biases, we all have them. You know, it's just like seeing a white person walk in and they have a voucher, and the folks that are giving housing go, what? You
right. Right. Right.
You know, but then they see me walk in and they're like, oh, she's got a voucher.
Right.
You know, when it could be the complete opposite.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly.
Right.
No.
Point. So you can anytime give me a call or send me an email and we'll help you through the process. Now, you must demonstrate a willingness and an ability to repay the debt. So obviously we're going to look at your income and look at your debt load and look at your credit. We would like for your income to be stable and dependable, but you do not have to be at that same job for 2 years. We just ask that you have been and had stable income for 2 years. We look at your credit worthiness. We look at a score. We like 640. But if it's not there, let's talk about why it's not. It may be just a number of inquiries. It may be just not enough credit. And if that's the case, don't stop. We still can help you. If you have no credit score, we're going to look at alternative credit. We're going to look at your cell phone bill, your light bill, your water bill, your phone bill.
For everybody in the household, and social security cards for everybody in the household. But you'll get, that'll be on the cover letter that we need that. The next piece that you will get with it will be an income qualification sheet that will explain what the very low income levels are for the county that you're applying in, be it Northampton County, Accomack County, Somerset, Worcester, going north. And then the other thing that it may do, because I do have some properties that have additional restrictions, that qualification sheet will mention what those additional restrictions are. So I have 2 properties that are agriculture farm labor properties, meaning that you have to derive
disagreements. So default, nobody wants to get evicted. So you found that great unit, you know, you've gone through the path to rental. You know, here's some things I want to say. What causes default? Okay, 1, not paying your rent on time, not maintaining that property, and not following that lease provisions or the lease terms. Okay, but you know, I'm always big on saying some common misunderstandings and some recommendations. Defaults includes not giving proper notice when you get ready to vacate. So don't ever just abandon the property. Don't ever just assume, well, the landlord knew I was going to leave, you know. Don't do that. You know, still do it the right way. Early termination, that can cause default as well, and you could result in you losing the security deposit, okay? With what causes default sometimes, you simply withholding your rent because of some maintenance issues that you may be having with the landlords. There's some steps that you can do. The court can intervene, but you just don't want to say because the landlord has not fixed something for you timely that I'm not going to pay my rent. Okay, don't do that. Okay, and then if you have some unoccupied occupants or even unauthorized pets, that can cause a default in your lease agreement as well. So to kind of just to wrap up, I want to say again, resources. I'm so big on resources. You know, there's many of them out there to help you build that roadmap to housing on the shore. Okay, that's what this conference is all about, helping you to build that roadmap and understanding those resources. And I've quickly kind of just covered some fair housing resources, you know, HUD, some federal acts and legislations, legal, financial, rental assistance, rental search. I didn't mention this, but Virginia Housing, we do maintain a database where landlords can actually post properties for rent, and you can actually go and search properties for rent. So it's a great database. You can sort by county or city. You can sort by the bedroom sizes, baths that you're looking for, your area that you're looking for. And again, free to you guys to do that as well. But again, I'm always going to pump up education through Virginia Housing, those free ebooks and that free online course. So I got through that pretty quickly. I'm sorry if I rushed a little bit, but as you can see, I'm really passionate, and there's a lot of things I kind of want to cover, but I hope that I didn't take up too much time, Ava, and that I got through it in my allotted time. All right, thank you guys so much. Really appreciate it.
Look, I was muted and started talking. Thank you. Thank you for that wonderful presentation. There was a lot in there, and I hope that folks took good notes. We are now gonna turn over to Dawn Scott from DHCD, and Dawn Scott and Senta Gori, both from DHCD. And I think the agenda has us starting with Senta and then going to you, Dawn. So we'll just let you guys introduce yourselves and start from there. And when one stops, the other can just pick right up.
Hi, thank you. This is Senta from DHCD. I am the Associate Director of Eviction Prevention and am running our new RMRP Rent and Mortgage Relief Program, which I can talk about briefly today. I am searching for how to share my screen with you all. I was expecting to see it in the upper left-hand corner. Can anyone direct me to?
Try the bottom in the center. That's where I found it.
Okay.
Try the bottom. Just kind of hover over the bottom and there.
I see. Sorry.
That's okay.
There are my children. Okay. And I'm not sure how to make these go away for you all.
Senta, if you'll go up to the top, see slideshow.
Thanks, Pam.
Yep, click on slideshow at the top and then from beginning.
Thank you, Pam.
You're welcome. Working.
So this will be fairly brief. I do know that ANPDC talked about this a little bit, and there's just a couple of friendly amendments I'll offer. But the RMRP program was designed to make sure that all Virginians could stay stably housed during a pandemic, during this pandemic. It's just rooted in the idea that people being able to stay in their homes is in the interest of public health. I apologize, there's an alarm going off somewhere in our apartment. Through RMRP, we're able to provide rent payments and mortgage assistance on behalf of households who are experiencing an economic hardship due to COVID. We are fairly flexible about how we define that. We only require a self-certification from the applicant, and we have not all-inclusive, but rather lengthy list of things that could include. So it isn't just that you lost your job because of COVID. It could also be that your children's parent lost their job and you now are receiving less child support or no child support. It could be that you lost your job prior to the pandemic, but due to your line of work, have had a difficult time getting re-employed or re-entering the workforce. DHCD is currently authorized to spend $50 million dating back to April 1 for those back payments and until December 30th. We are working with 30 grantees across the Commonwealth who were provided upfront payments, the least of which was $100,000. The most, I think, went up to $450,000, so that they had money in their pockets the day that the program launched, so that we could begin distributing rent and mortgage assistance immediately. The eligibility guidelines are that households need to have a gross income of 80% of AMI or less. I talked about how eligible households need to be able to demonstrate that they've had an economic hardship because of COVID. And this slide also gives you a link to some further materials and details about the program. There were, in the ANPDC's slide, there was some language about option 1 and option 2. So I'm going to preface these next 2 slides by saying that this is the current state of the program. It has already gone through one significant iteration, and we do expect that because of the outcomes of the special session, as well as some decisions being made internally to help get dollars out even faster, that what I'm presenting on today could likely change again by next week. But the landlords who participate in this program have 2 options. The first is known as option 1. It will cover the current month's rent in full, and then any past due rent needs to be split 50-50 with the landlord forgiving half and RMRP funds covering the other half. I think in Russ's slide, it had some language that limited it to 5 months, and that's probably because of how this visual looks. But it's meant to just go from April 1 to December 30th. We actually don't have a limit on the number of months we can split with landlords, but that was one of the changes that we made relatively recently. And then the second option is a little bit different. It still covers the full current month's rent and all associated fees. It can also cover up to 2 months of past due rent and all associated fees in full. And then after that, if there's any remaining balance that the tenant owes dating from April 1 to present, the landlord needs to agree to a payment plan with that tenant, and that payment plan needs to last a minimum of 6 months. And if a tenant finds that they're having a difficult time making that payment plan plus their ongoing rent, they can return to RMRP, and under option 2, we can provide assistance with 1 month of the payment plan and at that point, current month's rent. So this is the contact information for me on the left of the screen. I'm always happy to answer questions or help problem solve. And your local RMRP provider is ANPDC. And I just provided their phone number there, but I know in Russ's slide there was some more detailed contact information for the individual staff there. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have about that. But that is a brief overview of RMRP today.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Senta. And I think now we'll hold questions until after Dawn's presentation, and then we'll open the floor up for questions. So now we'll open it up to Dawn.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry I don't have my screen. I mean my what am I trying to say? Okay. Can everybody see this? My camera, it's not working. It stopped working. So But just want to introduce myself. My name is Dawn Scott. I'm the Housing Program Administrator here at DHCD for the Down Payment Assistance Program, as well as the Communities of Opportunities Tax Credit Program and the Mobility Housing Counseling Program. But what I wanted to talk to you today about is the Down Payment Assistance Program. I'll probably have more than enough information, but I'll try and cover it as quickly as possible. But just wanted to give you a little bit of background about, for those of you who do not know what DHCD does, we partner with local governments, nonprofit groups, state and federal agencies, as well as others, working to improve the quality of life for Virginians. The Home Partnership Investment Program, which is the funding source where we use our down payment assistance come from, was created by the National Affordable Housing Act of 1990. The program intent is to, provide affordable housing to lower income individuals, also helping to expand the capacity of nonprofit housing providers, and strengthen the ability of state and local governments to provide housing and leverage private sector participation. The home funds can be used for a lot of different eligible activities. And I'm just going to go through a brief some of those, which is one, homeowner rehab, home buyer activities, which is a program I'm involved in, as well as affordable special needs housing, children organizations, rural homeowner rehab, as well as vibrant community initiative. So those are some of the eligible activities that the home funds can be used for through our organization. Next, I want to get into some of the general home buyer rules and requirements for the down payment assistance. The purpose of DPA is, one, definitely to reduce the mortgage risk. We also want to provide a risk cushion for subsidy for first-time home buyers. A lot of individuals who come to me wanting to purchase a home have a little bit of money saved, but they don't have a lot of money saved. So this program kind of steps in to provide that gap that they need in order to be able to purchase their first home. We also want to make sure that, home buyers, when they get into the home, they're not home poor. We want them to be able to save. They have to be able to show that they have saved for home ownership. So they need to earn it versus just everybody, organizations giving them money, but they don't have the ability to still save for those unforeseen things that may come up, okay? Some forms of the assistance, it can be either used for down payment and or closing cost assistance. It can be used for either or both. One thing that the home buyer, they must contribute at least 1% of the sales price from their personal funds. If their annual income is between 50 and 80% of the area median income. If their income is below 50% of the area median income, then they can contribute up to $500 towards the purchase of their home. The max amount of direct assistance that we do provide is up to 10% of the sales price. And notice I say up to 10% because we do a subsidy land review to determine how much they actually will need as far as that gap for down payment and or closing cost assistance, but it can only go up to 10% of the sales price. We also can provide up to 15% in higher cost areas established by DHCD for the same amount of direct assistance. Home buyers that have at least 10% cash assets in a checking or savings account would not be eligible for the down payment assistance program. Subsidy amounts. We do have a limit on subsidy amounts, but the minimum investment per unit for home down payment assistance would be $1,000. We just want to make sure that the home buyer is not receiving more assistance than what is needed. Again, the max assistance, direct assistance would be 10% of the sales price or 15% in higher cost areas. If needed, we can also provide up to $2,500 towards closing costs. That's only if needed, and that is to look at the gap of financing that they need. We've also will look at any other subsidy that the home buyer may be receiving. They may be getting money from Federal Home Loan Bank, or they may be getting money from the mortgage lender that they're getting their first mortgage from. They may have another type of down payment assistance program. So we do look at a combined subsidy amount that they're receiving, because we want to make sure that they're not receiving more than 20% of the purchase price or appraised value, including the DHCD home funds, as well as the other subsidy. Because we don't want them going into the house with heavy subsidy, because that will let me know that they either, one, the house is not affordable because they need so much subsidy, and two, it's probably, the mortgage payment is probably more than what they can afford. So we kind of look at all the subsidy going into the deal to determine, is this real, realistic for the first time home buyer. Okay. And again, like I said, with the direct subsidy to the home buyer, it can help reduce the purchase price for the home buyer to below market, or otherwise subsidize the home buyer. And again, the subsidy can include the closing cost or down payment, or both. Okay. There are some property requirements with the down payment assistance program. Of course, the eligible properties would be a single family property, a 2-unit property, but the second unit must be a home rental. We will look at townhomes, condominium units, and manufactured homes. But the manufactured home, again, must be connected to a permanent utility hookup, and it must be located on the land that is owned by the manufactured housing unit owner, or on land for which the manufactured housing unit owner has a lease for a period at least equal to the applicable period of affordability. And what I mean by affordability, with the grant assistance, depending on the amount of assistance that you receive, there is an affordability period. And I believe I go into that later in my present. Yes, I do. So I'll go into that later. There is a maximum property value. All of the sales prices cannot exceed 95% of the area median purchase price. And the home that the home buyer is purchasing, the sales price.
I don't want to cut you off, but we're running out of time, and the system is designed to automatically transfer us. So you have about 2 minutes, and then take us back to the main session. So
well, I'm gonna cut it short right here. Mm-hmm. This is some of the requirements. Again, for the home buyer to qualify, their income has to be at least 80% of their main income. They have to, the property has to be their principal residence. They have to take a home buyer education course, as well as receive homeownership counseling. And again, provide 1% of the sales price from their personal funds as down payment. We do require a home inspection that is done on the home, and it must pass a home inspection. We do provide a lien on the property. So they will sign a deed of trust and note for the lien based on the amount of grant assistance that they receive. And that lien can stay on anywhere from 5 to 15 years, depending on the amount of assistance they received. And that was it.
Okay. Okay. So thank you for that. No, thank you for that. And so if we do have another hour, we'll be back in our full groups. So if there are pieces that you want to share that the entire group can receive a
Mhm.
benefit, then please feel free to share. The
Okay.
questions that those of you who are in the rooms might want to add, if there are those who want to make additional comments or questions, you can now raise them in the full group. That'll be the time that we'll have to do that. So we're not done. We're just going to join each other back in the full groups now.
Okay.
All right. See you guys in the main group in a few minutes.
Okay.
I think it's starting to transition you. I think we're still getting people from the other groups, but most of you are here. It looks like most of you made it over from the transition to the breakout rooms well. And thank you all for the time that we spent together in our breakout sessions. I hope that they were helpful to you and that you found them productive. What I'd like to do in order to give, when people select breakout sessions, oftentimes there is information that you would have liked to have heard or understood from the other groups, but were not able because, you can only be in one place at one time. So I'd like to ask the moderators if they would take a few minutes, and those of you who presented to help them, because I'm certainly going to have to rely on those who presented to help me, because I was handling technical stuff. If you kept hearing that message that said this meeting is being recorded, that was me trying to give rights to the moderators in the groups so that they could manage the meetings themselves. And every time I would come in and out of a group, it would announce that statement. So that was me dealing with technical stuff behind the scenes with the other groups. If the moderators would share with us some of the main points that came forward out of their sessions, and those of you who presented would help them if there are things that you would like to share with the larger group. We're going to open the floor now to Chris Thompson and start with you, Chris, to kind of give us an overview of your session, and those who presented you can support you. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks, Ava. And yeah, we had an awesome session with some fantastic presenters who gave us a lot of great information about the home buyer process. And certainly I'll ask those folks who were presenters to chime in as well. But kind of my takeaway is, that there are a lot of options available as a home buyer, and it can be kind of a lot, difficult road to navigate. But the good thing is there are lots of free resources available to take advantage of. And so while our presenters, walk through, different options in terms of lending products, we had a real estate agent who, talked about, what he sees from the consumer side. Again, a big takeaway for me is there are a lot of resources out there to help you educate yourself on the process. And there are people out there who are available to help you through this process as well. And so you've got some really strong presences on the Eastern Shore who are available to talk to you, meet with you, help you navigate through that process. Some of the takeaways I heard were, to know what your credit score is. That's going to be a key influencer in, how you move forward. and if there are some steps you need to take to maybe improve your credit score. So getting to understand that, I heard also to get pre-qualified early in the process, so you do know what you can afford. So when you're out there shopping around, you have some idea, what's reasonable for you. And also the great thing is we've got some good presentations with resources that I think, Ava, you're going to make available through some sort of resource page. So everyone provided contact information, online resources, and the like. So if you weren't in this session, you still have the opportunity to go back and educate yourself and take advantage of the resource.
Thank you. Was there anything else that those who presented in that session would like to add before we move on to the rental session? Well, thank you. So we'll go on to the rental session that was moderated by Karen Downing, and Colin King and Brenda Holden presented. Karen.
Yes, Brenda Holden and Colin King were the two presenters about renting your home. And Mrs. Holden spoke about as far as renting a house, and that her and her husband have different size homes available in Accomack and Northampton and counties, and also in Maryland. And both of them stressed to us about knowing your credit score and also knowing your budget for when you're looking to rent a home or an apartment, to know your budget, and about the location, knowing what location, what area do you actually want to live in. And it's important to read, not only the rental application, but your agreement, and knowing exactly what are the expectations, what are your responsibilities as the renter, and as far as to them as the landlord. And Mr. King went into the different properties as well that his firm manages, and looking at the different rental assistant type programs that are available as well. And with those assistant programs, there's a lot of documentation and information that the applicant should be prepared to share. And the information would be required from all adult members who are going to be living in that household, not just, some would think that it would only be from that one initial person, but whomever adults are going to be in the property would need to have the same information, the income information, being sure that they have the pictured ID and so forth from them. And if there are any special needs that the applicant may have, to make that known as part of the application too. There are unfortunately waiting lists associated with a lot of the apartment rentals, and you want to be sure again of what location you're interested in when making your application, because there may be a waiting list. As we went through, it's important to, particularly if you're on a waiting list, to keep your contact information updated, so that as your name comes up on that list, that they do have a good contact information for you. If there are, Mr. King said that they are available to assist with the paperwork that is required, because there may be several items that the applicant would have to complete, and that for the assistant programs, it is based on your adjusted gross income. And there were several items that he mentioned that would also, decrease your adjusted gross income. Say, for example, if there are children, if there are elderly, if there are childcare costs, etc. So, in being, completing those applications, be sure that you have, your information available and complete it thoroughly as well. So I asked the both of them if they had any availabilities. Ms. Holden shared that there's she actually has 2 4-bedroom homes, one in Accomack, one in Northampton, and there's another 3-bedroom home in Accomack that they're currently rehabbing, and the rehabbing process takes about 6 to 8 weeks. And Mr. King mentioned a 2-bedroom on Bailey's Road, that is in the Parksley area, for farm labor or agriculture folks, or even there may be able to, if there are applicants from Purdue or Tyson, they may actually be able to get them in as well. We put their contact information in the chat for either of them, and also for the Accomack Northampton Housing Authority number is in the chat as well. Anita was also on, Anita Clayton. Did you have anything you wanted to share or offer? She was in the session too.
The only thing I had to offer was that we talked about there are some programs out there for members moving from a nursing facility for medically needy individuals. So that there are some programs coming up. So we're going to share that contact information and share those resources as well.
Thank you. And where was Anita from?
The Optima Care.
Optima Care, okay.
Yeah, her information is also in the chat. There's Optima Care community care program, and she was sharing information with Brenda and with Colin about that program and some of the needs that they have for their clients too.
So can you give us a quick overview of what that service is so that people can kind of understand what it is you do?
Absolutely. So about 3 years ago, Medicaid actually, the state put together a program for Medicaid called CCC Plus. And what it's designed to do is it works with different MCO providers or managed care organizations for members who are on Medicaid who also have medical needs. And what we do is we provide case management type of services, care coordination services. The whole program is designed to look at the member from a holistic standpoint. So we actually partner with resources in the community. We have some resources that we can also provide to make sure that they are stable, they're living out in the community, that they're safe. They have resources to housing, to food, to medical needs, that kind of a thing. We also cover long-term services and supports, which would be like a personal care aide going out into the home, that kind of a thing.
Thank you. Thank you for that. So if there are no other questions for that session, the session that I did was about resources and support. And I am going to rely on my presenters because I was able to listen and gain a lot of great information when I was in there, but I spent a good amount of time popping out to check on the other breakout sessions, and I apologize for that. So I'm going to kind of turn it over to those of you who were in the session to kind of highlight the things that you would really like this group to take away from your presentation. And you don't have to go do long, but just if you would name, starting with LaDonna, what would be, say, the top 3 takeaways that you would want folks to leave your presentation with?
Needed to make sure I was unmuted first. My top 3 would be to definitely educate themselves on the processes, but also on the available services out there. I'm just a big advocate for housing counseling services. You're not expected to know everything, and those individuals have made a career out of being able to keep up to date on the industry, including the laws and regulations and just some best practices, but also the resources that are available to you. So my top 3 again is education, referrals, and resources.
Thank you. Russ, we'll turn it over to you now for the programs at AMPDC.
Sure, can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Basically, I gave a 10-minute presentation on everything we do here. I talked about our rental assistance, whether it was with Section 8 or assisting homeless families through the Homeless Solutions Program. I talked about our housing counseling program and education for new home buyers and counseling for foreclosure. And I talked a little bit about the new rent and mortgage relief program. I tried to get into a little detail with that, and Senta actually provided some clarity on one of the conditions that the agreement with the landlord and the tenant on that program. So that's what I presented, and we're willing to, of course, take any questions on that, and we've made available our contact information.
Thank you for that. And if anyone has any questions for Russ and AMPDC, feel free to, raise those questions as soon as we get through this feedback part. And then I'll turn it over now to Senta and Dawn to try to name the top 3 things that you would want to leave, be the takeaway from this session.
Dawn, I don't want to jump in front of you, but I'll go first. Top 3 things. One is that there is a program with a lot of money in it right now who can help, that can help you pay rent and mortgage. Basic eligibility requirements are that you need to be at an income level that is 80% of area median income or less. Your residence cannot exceed the 150% of fair market rent benchmark. And we have 2 options right now for landlords to choose from. One option allows us to pay half of the back due rent, with the landlord forgiving the other half. The second option pays for a bit more upfront, but then requires the landlord to engage in a payment plan with tenants. And maybe the most important thing to say is that anyone who's been following this program knows that it's already gone through some significant iterations as we continue to build the plane while we fly it. And in light of the issues being debated in the special session right now, as well as some internal decisions that DHCD can make to make this program even more flexible, you'll likely see another significant overhaul by next week, which I think will please everyone, will allow the money to flow faster and get more support to both the tenants and the landlords.
Thank you. And now we'll go to Dawn.
Okay, the few highlighted parts of the homebuyer down payment assistance program, again, is for first-time home buyers. It's for individuals whose income is less than 80% of the area median income limits. They do, of course, have to take a homebuyer education course certified through HUD, as well as receive homeownership counseling. They can receive up to 10% of the sales price for direct assistance, whether it's for down payment and or closing cost assistance. And if they live in a higher cost area, they can get up to 15%. Their minimum requirement is that they have to put in 1% of the sales price from their own personal funds. And that 1% can come from their deposit on their sales contract, any inspections that they pay for, homeowners insurance, upfront fees, anything they pay for out of pocket prior to closing can go towards their 1%. We do hold a lien on the property just during the affordability period because we want to make sure that the homeowner stays in the property as their primary principal residence, based on the amount of assistance that they receive, and that could be anywhere from 5 to 15 years, based on the amount of assistance. We do have liberal credit guidelines as well. they have to have at least a 620 or higher medium credit score. We do have more liberal ratios. Their debt to income ratio can be at 43%, and their housing ratio can be at 33%. Another caveat is we do inspect the property, so the home, has to pass a home inspection, as well as a visual lead inspection if the home was built before 78. And that's it. Just a few highlights.
Sure, thank you. Thank you so much for that. We're gonna go now to the fourth session, which was Know Your Rights, where they talked about fair housing, and I'm gonna turn it over to Stacy.
Yes, thank you. So that was a great session. I feel like it was something that would be helpful to everyone and kind of close the loop on providing information for people that are not only looking to purchase a home, but also for renters. And it's also for those who are looking for a mortgage and those looking into home ownership, homeowners insurance. And that's the Fair Housing Law, which has been amended to include more areas of protection as of July of this year, July 1st of this year. So what we are going to do is we're going to get the presentations that Molly and Martin presented. It has a wealth of information that is in there. And one of the biggest things that was a focal of the topic was the source of funding is often an area that it gets in the way of people becoming a homeowner or having a place to rent because of the avenue that their funds come from, whether it be because the person has a disability, or if their home would be paid for, or rent would be paid with a, am I going to say this right, a housing voucher? Please correct me if I'm saying the wrong thing. That oftentimes people are being turned away or not being considered for that. There were other things that we talked about that are barriers for those who are just starting out, even those who may be hindered from a criminal background check. There was an example of a person from 2006 who had still in the current time today was rejected the opportunity for housing because of something from 2006. And those are barriers that should not impede anyone from having a home, whether it's ownership or through rental. So we look forward to sharing those details, because I think that there's more information that is wrapped up in the fair housing that would go along with assisting individuals looking into, as I said, purchasing, renting, obtaining a mortgage, and your homeowner's insurance that will help you in your path to finding your home.
Thank you, Stacy. Before we go further, I know that as I look down the list of participants at the beginning, I know that some of you do represent other programs that maybe weren't there, on the presenter list. And for example, I see Beth Pusha and some others here. Would you please mind sharing some of your services that your organization offers? I know CERCAP over the years has done a lot of work on the shore. And if Beth doesn't mind, I hate to put you on the spot, but if Beth and others of you who are there who also have similar resources that are available to folks on the shore would not mind sharing a little bit about your programs, it would be really helpful. Beth, do you mind? Yeah, I see her there. Or anyone else for that matter who represents an organization that also serves the Eastern Shore, if you would not have something to share. While we're kind of waiting for folks to rejoin and come back to the table, are there any questions from those of you who are out there who have been listening and participating in the various breakout sessions today?
Ava? Can I just go back a minute and ask Brenda or Colin if they had anything to offer? And I know I put out a lot of information there.
I'm sorry about that. Did I forget the rental
No, you didn't
section?
forget.
Oh,
No,
no, we
you didn't forget it. I just
Okay.
wanted to offer to Brenda or to Colin if they had anything else that they wanted to offer that I might have missed.
Ava, this is Marty Wakebright. One thing I didn't get time to present in the breakout session was a very brief PowerPoint, just only 10, 11 slides on COVID-19 and evictions in Virginia. And if you think that would be of interest to the general group, I could run that through. I could do that in about 10 minutes if you want me to do that.
Sure. I think that was one of the reasons why Ramona in particular wanted to do this breakout session, because of the impact that COVID, that the pandemic was having on eviction rates and what is anticipated in the months to come. So sure, please.
Okay,
please do.
I can do that right now. So let me go ahead and do that. And slideshow, and okay, you should be seeing my screen. Virginia eviction law and COVID-19. We good on that?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is what we are going to cover in the next 10 minutes. And I'm going to start with the state eviction moratorium, which has been on again, off again, on again, off again, and now on again, sort of. So from middle of March to the middle of May, we had an eviction moratorium, and only essential emergency court cases were heard. That did not include non-payment of rent, evictions, and most other non-rent cases. So there were no evictions during those 2 months. Then for 3 weeks, the eviction moratorium was lifted and these cases could be heard in person if it was safe to do so. Then for the next 3 weeks, from June 8 to June 28, the eviction moratorium was reimposed to allow Virginia to implement the comprehensive rent relief program. More about that shortly. And then ironically, the very day the rent relief program was announced, which was June 29, the statewide eviction moratorium was lifted, although the governor requested that local judges impose it locally if they felt it was appropriate. To our knowledge, only 2 courts did that, Arlington and Fairfax. And so until August the 7th, it was business as usual. And then we are currently under the 8th judicial emergency order, which is thought of as an eviction moratorium, but it's very limited. It only prohibits issuance of writs of eviction, which is the paper that allows the sheriff to evict, in a non-payment of rent case. So landlords can still charge late fees, they can still issue non-payment notices, they can still file eviction lawsuits, they can still go to court, they can still present evidence, they can still get judgments of possession, they can still get money judgments, they can still enforce the money judgments by garnishing income or bank accounts, and they can still enforce judgments of possession that are not based on non-payment of rent. The only thing they can't do is enforce judgments of possession if the reason is non-payment of rent. And the reason is to see what the General Assembly does in the special session that began on Tuesday. So that's the state eviction moratorium. The rent and mortgage relief program we've already talked about. I'll talk about the rent portion of it. There has to be a valid lease and loss of income due to COVID-19. As mentioned, monthly rent has to be below 150% of fair market rent, and household income below 80% of area median income, which is never a problem for most tenants. It's a voluntary program, and there are 2 options. Option 1, rent relief pays current rent and up to 3 months past rent with the equal amount forgiven by the landlord. Maybe 1 in 10 landlords are doing that. And the second option, again, voluntary, is rent relief pays current rent and up to a month past rent, and then there's a payment plan of at least 6 months to get the tenant to zero balance. The tenant has to pay ongoing rent and usually 1/6 of the arrears to get to zero balance. Locally, on the Eastern Shore, this is administered by Accomack Northampton Planning District Commission, and there's the number. The federal eviction moratorium ended July 25, notwithstanding the Trump administration's executive order. It's not currently in effect, but what it did was it prohibited any type of eviction action in all types of federal housing, including federally backed mortgage properties, FHA, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, VA, etc. And that moratorium is ended. So what landlords have to do, who were covered by that, is they must give a 30-day notice in all cases for any eviction action before they can take any additional action. So those notices partly started to go out. If they went out on August 26th, if they went out on July 26th, they're going to expire August 25, which is shockingly close. It's this coming Tuesday. And what we call the second tsunami of evictions could start as early as next Wednesday, August the 26th. In addition to that, there's a VHDA forbearance and tenant protection program. And this is a voluntary program for landlords who have rental property covered by a VHDA mortgage or a mortgage through the Department of Housing and Community Development or the Virginia Housing Trust Fund. And these landlords who have mortgages of rental property can get forbearance up to 3 consecutive monthly payments. So that could have started May, June, July, or it could be as late as September, October, November. And if the landlord is part of this program, then the requirements of the federal moratorium apply. No pay or quits, no late fees, no eviction filings until, in this case, it would be the end of the forbearance period, which, as I said, could be as late as November. And so the only way we know about whether the landlord is doing this is through VHDA. Now, this is probably the most important slide on the whole program, because emergency legislation was enacted by the General Assembly at the veto session on April the 22nd. And this provides protections to tenants affected by loss of income due to COVID-19 during the state of emergency. And that state of emergency started March 12 and continues indefinitely. So if people lost income starting March 12 and they're sued for non-payment of rent that was unpaid during that state of emergency, so on or after March 12, the tenant can get the case postponed for 60 days, guaranteed, if they follow the rules. Rules are, they have to come to court, and they have to bring with them written proof of loss of income due to COVID-19 on or after March 12th. That could be a pay stub showing $0, or a furlough letter, or a letter showing you're a non-essential employee, or any other document acceptable to the court. This protection applies to the tenants covered by the federal moratorium. This protection applies during the entire state of emergency, which has not yet ended, and tenants need to know this. They certainly should contact legal aid if they have any trouble at all getting the 60-day moratorium, but people have got to go to court with that writing that shows they lost income to get that 60-day postponement. And they should not be deterred, and they should tell the judge repeatedly, I'm here to get my 60-day postponement. Here's my proof of loss of income due to COVID-19. This is the key takeaway. Residents of hotels and motels, under current law, if you're there for more than 90 days, you're a tenant, you're allowed all of the tenant protections, which means no lockouts, no utility cutoffs, no self-help evictions. The owner has to follow the usual court eviction process, which is a written notice, an eviction lawsuit, a judgment of possession, a writ of eviction, and then only the sheriff can evict. If you're there less than 90 days, you're not legally a tenant, and you're not entitled to any of these protections, except if you're there less than 90 days, you have to get a 5-day pay or quit notice before the landlord on day 6 or subsequent can evict you through self-help, not going to court. 2 more slides. Another thing we're seeing is abandonment notices, where landlords give tenants who haven't been able to pay rent an abandonment notice, and after 7 days without a response, they consider the property abandoned and they try to do a self-help eviction. That is illegal. Landlords are still required to go to court and get a judgment of possession. So the key takeaway here is the tenant does not have to move in response to any landlord notice, oral or written. The landlord must take them to court. Now, tenants probably should not ignore the abandonment notice. They should probably respond in writing, but nevertheless, even if they don't respond, the landlord cannot do self-help. If the landlord does self-help, this is what the tenant should do. Go to the general district court, file a tenant's petition for relief from unlawful exclusion. They can get back in, resume the utility, or end the rental agreement early without penalty. They can get actual damages and attorney's fees. The key thing there is they have to sue the true owner, not the rental agent or the property manager. And if the true owner is not a natural person, a flesh and blood human being, then you need the name and physical address of the registered agent from the state's corporation commission. And lastly, this is where tenants can get help statewide. I'll be happy to send this PowerPoint along with my other ones to y'all. That's it. Questions?
Hi,
Thank you.
this is Santa. This is Santa Marty, and there was just one, I think, inaccuracy in one of your RMRP slides.
Okay.
And it was probably correct at the time that you made it, but the changes, it doesn't reflect the most recent changes. Yep. So the number one, the option one, it says rent relief pays current rent and up to 3 months of past due rent. We lifted that 3-month cap because the program is lasting longer than we expected it to.
No surprise.
Yeah. So in option one, RMRP can pay for the full current month and any associated fees. And then for any number of past due months, going back to April 1, we can pay for half if the landlord forgives half.
Got it. I'll make that change. Thanks. I appreciate that.
Okay, thank you, Santa. Ramona, well, Hugh Hennessy asked if Martin would share who is the contact person for legal aid on the shore. So who would people turn to here on the shore?
So it would be the Legal Aid Society of Eastern Virginia. And you can just go to their website, which is www.laseva.org. And everything will be explained there as to how to do intake and the whole process for doing that. I believe they have some type of a centralized intake system, as we do. So wherever you are in the service area, which for LaCeva includes the Eastern Shore, all of Southampton roads, all of Northampton roads, and it goes a little bit up the peninsula all the way to Williamsburg. But it doesn't matter where you live in that area, it's the same intake process, and it's all explained on their webpage.
Bobby Joe just listed the name of Susan Hickey. So are you saying that is the legal aid representative here on the shore, Bobby Joe?
Since I work for Central Virginia Legal Aid Society, I really am not, I can't answer for them.
Yeah, no, I'm asking Bobby Joe if that is the name of the person.
Okay.
Yeah. And so Ramona, you had a question that you put in the chat. Would you mind just asking it?
Sure, if I can find it. My question was, yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
So my question was that with the new laws, do they spell out any particular rights or protections for property owners or landlords?
I'm not hearing this.
Can you ask your question again? It's she wrote,
yeah.
Do the new laws spell out rights or protections for property owners or landlords?
Well, I mean, there's 14 new laws. And to be perfectly frank, I think they balance between landlords and tenants, which over the past 20 or 30 years has been very much tilted in favor of landlords. I mean, I've got a whole other PowerPoint that I could spend an hour on, but won't, about those 14 new laws. But I think the key one is that when leases are either entered into or renewed as of July 1, the landlord has to offer to the tenant a statement of tenant rights and responsibilities, which is on the website of the Department of Housing and Community Development. And this was hammered out by extensive discussions between landlord representatives and tenant representatives, including me. And so I think it's a fair statement of what the tenant's rights are and what the tenant's responsibilities are. And so it has to be signed by both and dated by both the landlord and the tenant when a lease is entered into or renewed on or after July 1. I think that's completely fair because tenants need to know what their rights are. They need to know what their responsibilities are. They need to be set forth in writing. The law now requires it. And it says that if this document is not signed and dated by both parties and provided a copy to the tenant, the landlord may not go to court for any reason. For any reason. So I would go to the DHCD website and look for the statement of tenant rights and responsibilities, because again, this is a document that was agreed to by both landlord representatives and tenant representatives. So I think the answer is we are trying to protect everyone's rights here so everyone knows what their rights and responsibilities are.
Thank you. Did that answer your question, Ramona?
Yes, thank you.
Great, thank you. So are there any other questions from those of you who are joining us from the general public? I reached out to Russ and Beth to see if they would share about CERCAP. I don't know if they can hear me. But I want to thank you all for, Russ, did you notice that I said something? I think
I did, if you can hear me.
Yes, I can now.
Oh, very good.
Yes, please feel free.
Oh, sure. So I'm with CERCAP, Southeast Rural Community Assistance Project. We're based in Roanoke, but serves statewide. And we do have a housing program that we work with Virginia Housing and DHCD and others to provide a variety of programs like indoor plumbing, rehabilitation, the lead removal abatement program, and others. And I won't go into a lot of detail about our involvement there, but we have a variety of loan and grant programs under Beth Boucher's direction to help especially low-income families to deal with home repairs or emergency situations, especially geared toward their water and wastewater needs. And I do have kind of an announcement, but there's a caveat that this isn't secured yet, but we have been in contact with the EPA. We had applied earlier this year with a lot of partners on this call for an environmental justice community problem solving grant. And we heard that we were a finalist for that program. Because of COVID, there's been a little bit of delay in making that award, but the basis of that grant program, we'd be able to work over 2 years with up to 200 homeowners with that are experiencing septic failure problems. So it'll involve some work with Virginia Tech to do water quality testing and our technical assistance specialists to help homeowners that are having septic system failure to try and diagnose those, the extent of the problem and provide some solutions. If there's more than, say, where we have funding to provide subsidize folks for a pump out of a septic system, and but we also have funding available to assist with more extensive repairs. So we haven't gotten the final award notice for that yet, but we're really hopeful that that'll be forthcoming here. And if the award is made, that program would begin October 1st. So I hope that's good news for you all.
Thank you. Thank you. Bobby Joe wanted to share a couple of some programs, and then Jane Cabarrus, I see you have your hand raised for a question.
I appreciate the opportunity, Ava. One of the things that I wanted to mention, I know SARECAP just made the announcement about potential EPA funding for septic pump out and additional repairs. I wanted to let you know that the Planning District Commission has a current DEQ, Department of DEQ. Alphabet soup is escaping me right now as I look at the Virginia Hydrological Unit Explorer database on my screen. But we have a current grant in 2 specific areas to provide septic pump out to low-income families for owner-occupied homes in the Chesapeake Bay watershed. And that can provide, you know, to have your septic pump out right now is about anywhere from $250 to $350. And we provide that service. Thank you, Jay. It is Department of Environmental Quality. My alphabet soup escaped me. Thank you for filling that void. But we do have a program that is designed to help families pump out their tanks right now. And if you are particularly in the Eastville area, in the watershed that would be near the Hungers Creek, Mattawoman Creek, and possibly an extension down to the Kings Creek area, there is a potential, Jacobus Creek, Hungers Creek, I mentioned a moment ago. We do have funds available that could do a septic system pump out inspection and potentially a repair. So if anyone is in need of a septic system repair, we do have those funds available to residents in the Chesapeake Bay watershed, and more than willing to walk you through the process. All they have to do is call us. We will run you through the Virginia Hydraulic Unit to see if you are in that watershed and to give you specific instructions. All it is needed is to call the office. We'll run your address to see if you qualify on a preliminary basis. And if you do not want to call us, you can send us a quick email at info@a-npdc.org, and I can put that in the chat. But we'll be more than happy to help you with septic repairs actively and for septic pump out services. I also want to mention that with DHCD, we have a current program with the indoor plumbing and rehab program. We do have a long list in that program, and we're excited to get under the new contract with them regarding the combination of the IPR program and the rural home ownership program that was administered through DHCD for the past 2 years and offered through DHCD. That program is going to morph into the IPR Flex program, and we'll be able to administer that program. So families that were sitting on our waiting list, waiting for funds to become available, as soon as DHCD releases the reins on that program, we'll be ready to move through our waiting list for those families, and we're excited to get going on that opportunity. We do have other initiatives, and I am very thankful that this platform has been put out for the families to educate everyone here. I love to see some of the old faces and partners that we have worked with ANPDC over the years, and appreciate the opportunity that Ava has put together with the HCD to get this all going. So anything that we can do here at the PDC, you know, Russ mentioned earlier about all the housing services stuff. We're on the housing development side, and then there's a lot of initiatives moving forward on our planning department as well. So we try to do our very best, and if we're not doing it, then let us know, and we'll do our very best to get you connected to the right services. We have a lot of new and exciting things that we're working on. You know, Mr. Q Hennessy is new to our agency and is our HUD certified housing counselor. So we're excited to have him on board and offering the education that he has for our families here on the shore. So again, anything that we can do, we're here to help. And I'll put that information in the chat. So Ava, I appreciate the opportunity to speak. And thank you again for putting this platform together.
Thank you so much, Bobby Joe. And if there's any of that information that you had shared a few seconds ago, you and Russ, in written form, the presenters have already started, as I look in my email, sending me their presentations, and I thank you all for doing that. There is a drive that we set up called the Eastern Shore Housing Resources Toolkit. It's a public drive. We're down on Google Drives. We're downloading all of the information onto there, all the presentations. That was the reason why we were so interested in making sure that we could record as much of these sessions as possible. And hopefully the moderators were able to get some of their sessions recorded once I gave them the permissions. I had to go and figure out how to give permissions and get that right. And so hopefully they were able to share those sessions, but at least we have both of the main sessions recorded. Those recordings will be downloaded along with your presentations. Any other information that you have in writing that you'd like to share with us, we can download that to the drive, and we're going to make that drive available to the public from here on. And as new information comes, we'll add more, and we'll add it to the drives. We'll have applications, we'll have presentations, we'll have other guidebooks and resources, anything that you think would be helpful to providing access and opportunity to housing. It'll be there. Jane Cabarrus, you had your hand raised for a question, and then I'll close us out.
I know, Ava, I didn't have a question. I want to add to the number for the legal aid for the Eastern Shore. I serve on that board representing the Eastern Shore, and sometimes the number is better than trying to go to a website. And I was going to give the number, and our lawyer now, I think, is Ray Hart for the Eastern Shore, H-A-R-T. I think that's our new appointed lawyer, and they are thinking about, we were planning something for the Eastern Shore to bring about more awareness for legal aid on the Eastern Shore, but the COVID hit us. But I do have a number like 757-627-5423. That's better than having to go to a website if you have problems and you want to ask legal aid some questions, and you can always find my number and I'll help you if somebody want to, get in touch with legal aid. I think Marsha Carter also serves on the board for legal aid for the Eastern Shore. So I'm one of the board members for Eastern Shore.
So this is Marty Wakeman again. Ray Hartz is the executive director of Legal Aid Society of Eastern Virginia. And they have like at least 5 or 6 different offices. The Eastern Shore office is in Bellhaven.
Yes.
And the number I have for them is 757-442-3014. Again, 757-442-3014. Now, calling that number, they may very well say call the intake line, but that is the local office in Bellhaven.
Yes, but we don't have a lawyer there around the clock. That's what I was saying. I was giving people another option to go directly to the line rather than calling that office, because we don't have a lawyer around the clock.
I got it. Right. Okay.
So LaDonna Cruz is going to share with Virginia Housing. I was about to go into my part where I was going to thank our sponsors. You always have to thank your sponsors and your partners. And Virginia Housing is our sole sponsor of this event. But of course, we're always grateful for their support. And thank you to Chris Thompson for not only offering to be a sponsor, but sitting in on every single committee meeting, helping with the planning, moderating a session. I don't have the words to thank you for your support, Chris, in helping us to pull this effort off. I've been getting a lot of emails as we were leading up to this day from people going, I just want to see how this works. Like, if you can really do a session with the public and people and presenting and do breakouts and bring them back. And we had some technical stuff along the way, but nothing major. And I think we've kind of started to chart in a new territory. I think we pulled it off, I think. I hope you guys agree. But I could not have done it without Chris Thompson and Stacy Johnson and Karen Downing and Ramona Chapman. Thank you to DHCD. DHCD, so Ramona asked me if I would share some of the genesis for how we got here and the Eastern Shore Housing Coalition. The Regional Housing Coalition came together last year in September after DHCD early last year, in April and May of last year. Some of the DHCD leadership asked if we would pull together a summit, a housing summit for the Eastern Shore. And the summit was largely going to be focused on the practitioners of housing, local governments, local organizations, any organization on the shore that had a hand in doing affordable housing on the Eastern Shore would be invited to this summit so that we could begin to identify the gaps and look for strategies to address some of those gaps in affordable housing on the Eastern Shore. Because many of you are aware, we are experiencing an affordable housing crisis is the word that we have heard repeatedly used over and over again. There's not enough new housing stock. There's not enough new affordable housing stock. There are still far too many homeless. I think the very first article that came out from the Housing Summit literally said they have no options, was the headline of the newspaper report that came out. They have no options. And so we have continued to address that issue. And so the Housing Summit came together, identified some goals, identified some specific tasks that we could accomplish in the next 12 months in those goals. And this was one of them, and we have made massive headway in every single one of those goals and have accomplished many of the tasks that we set out to accomplish despite the pandemic. And none of it could not have been done unless every single one of the people who have participated in this coalition stayed engaged, came to every committee meeting for this and other committee meetings, and helped to move this work forward. We have made tremendous strides in a year, and I could not be more proud of my community than I am today. A month from now, we will have the 1-year anniversary summit on September 25th. I hope you all will join us who are practitioners and help us to kind of set the agenda for the year that is to come. We've laid a tremendous foundation. Now we have to build on it. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to LaDonna to share. We have like 3 minutes if I'm going to get you guys out here on time. Okay. But I'm going to turn it over to LaDonna to share what she wants to share about Virginia housing. I'm going to let Ramona, Stacy, Chris, and Karen say anything to close us out, and Jane, those of you who served on the committee, and I won't say another word except thank you. Thank you all.
All right, Ava, thank you so much. And again, on behalf of Virginia Housing, we're so thankful to be able to participate. One of the things I just wanted to do really quickly, it won't take long at all, because usually when we have these kind of conferences, everybody's like, where do you go? And so on our website, I'm showing it now, just going straight to virginiahousing.com, or you can still do vhda.com for right now. If you scroll down to the bottom of the page, you will see in blue an area where we have information for home buyers, we have information for existing homeowners, as well as we have information for renters. And so just about everything that you heard me talk about today, as well as Amy on home ownership, can be found here, from finding a lender, finding a real estate agent under home ownership. We also have some toolkits ourselves as well. And that list of housing counselors, which is so very, very important, we can have a link to that as well. We never let go. So even under home ownership, we always want them to retain home ownership. So we have information here. And rental, you heard me talk about the ebook, the online course. You can just click on these links to get there. Accessibility units, as well as finding rentals. But a lot of these with our programs will actually take you to a link where I heard SIRCAP was talking about some resources and things. So this is a great start for some of you, is to really go here to the virginiahousing.com page and click on these links to get started. Okay, that's it for me, Ava. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to turn it over to Chris and Ramona, Stacy and Karen. Any closing remarks and Jane? And if I'm missing any other, Russ. Thank you, Russ. Russ participated in every committee meeting as well. If any of you who are on the committee have any closing remarks, please share.
This is Chris. I just wanted to say I think we all owe you, Ava, a big debt of gratitude for all the work you put into pulling this together, keeping us on track. And so we wouldn't be here without your leadership. So thank you so much. I appreciate you letting us be part of this. And we're, for Virginia Housing, I know we're looking forward to the next event.
Thank you. Ramona?
Okay, I echo what Chris just said. I really want to thank you, Ava, for your leadership. You are, to me, the ambassador to the shore, and in working with you, with DHCD, we are eager to continue collaborating with the Eastern Shore Coalition, as well as building our partnerships with your local governments, your PDC. I'm glad to see Bobby here and your other reps from the counties, and to work with the members of the committee, Miss Jane and Miss Myra, Miss Karen, and glad to see Mr. Herrera and those who attended our committee meetings. I'm really impressed with the way the coalition has bonded and the success you all have had over the past year. And so I'm really eager to, see more of your goals be implemented. You've got strong goals and you've achieved several of your goals to this point. And I want to thank the speakers that I reached out to, Miss Molly and Mr. Martin, my colleague, Dawn and Sabrina. And so I just wanted to say how pleased and happy and proud I am to have had any type of role working with you, Ava, and with your coalition. It's getting stronger and stronger. And so I just want you to know I'm here to support you and do whatever I can to help you all achieve your goals. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to say that.
Thank you. Stacy, Karen.
Just thank you and great job, everyone. We look forward to September 25th and the second annual Housing Summit. We hope that you are able to join us. Ava will be getting out the flyer and registration information soon. So I know she'll also have the coalition meeting again to start work on that next. And thank you to Stacy, my partner in crime as well on the coalition.
Absolutely.
Oh, you guys are so awesome. I'm so excited. I'm going to keep this really quick and short because I feel like emotional for some reason. I'm just like, Ava, you're an awesome, it's just, but it's the coming together, right? So, I've seen it from the perspective here with Habitat for Humanity. And I feel like in some ways it's much easier to see that come together there. But in this way here, we've been doing everything with the exception of the meeting we had last in March in person. Everything's been online, and we've been able to maintain our relationships and grow and develop together. And I'm just so thankful for everything that I've learned from you guys individually and collectively through our meetings and even today. And Ava, your strength and all that you pushed through and have endured this year. Thank you so much for your love and your passion for this and for creating this platform and allowing me to be part of it. Really excited to be here, and I can't wait to see where we plug in next.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all. Jay made a comment. I don't know if you wanted to share it with everyone. Jay Grant is one of the senior management at DHCD. And so I wanted to give you the opportunity to speak before we close out, if you like, Jay. You're muted.
foul of 2020. I'm muted. No, I didn't really have anything extra other than, you know, thank you for doing this. This has been a great experience. I've been, you know, we've all been busy, but I've been kind of plugged in via Ramona. So just want to shout her out as well. But yes, this committee is doing great things, and I'm just following the words of others. Thank you for what you're doing, and we're just looking to continue to forge great continued strengthened relationships so that we can help the shore to get to where it's trying to go in terms of housing and community development. So thank you.
Thank you. And so with that, I will, if there's no other questions or comments or statements, I noticed that a lot of you are dropping your contact information in the chat. We will try to capture that information, save that file, and share it with everyone. Again, it'll be in the toolkit that we share. And so hopefully, if there's any other information that you'd like to share, you can send it forward to us and we will be able to share it. Did you have one final thing, Jane, to add before we go?
I just want to say to you, Ava, I've watched you grow into this. It's no longer a American dream for a home. We have a lot of homelessness on the Eastern Shore, and you are doing an outstanding job along with everybody else to see that people can have a better life now. God bless you.
And thank you. Thank you for that. I had to jump down and plug my computer back in because it was about to die. But thank you all. I appreciate that, Janie. This is all, thank you for your decades of work on the Eastern Shore, and all of you who, as Bobby said, that have partnered with us on the shore for many, many years, many of you. And I think we are making great strides. We've laid a good foundation this year. I hope we lay a better second layer on that foundation in the coming year. I want to point out, Sherry Miles is here. Our ARS program, we are preparing to renovate our first house under the ARS program that we were funded for with DHCD. That house will be available for sale, hopefully in the next couple of months. And so if you know of people who are looking to acquire a home, I hope that we will do a good job on the rehab. That's our focus, to do a really good job to make that home a really special place for a family in the next couple of months. And we have 4 others that we'll do immediately after that. So if you know of people who may be interested in purchasing a new home, keep them in mind for us. Yes, Sherry, I did remember to make that plug. So with that, I'll say thank you to you all for participating, all of the presenters, all of you who shared and spoke, LaDonna and Mally and Marty and Amy, and I don't want to forget someone, so I'll stop there. But all of you, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate it. Have a wonderful day.
Thank
wonderful
you.
weekend.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you, Ava. Thank you all.